Hello, ladies, gentlemen, and others. I'm George Jones, aka the Peculiar Lefty, and welcome to day 8 of my 31 Days of Horror. Today I'll be looking at 30 Days of Night. Now, 30 Days of Night has at its base a pretty obvious idea. You know those places in the Arctic Circle where it's dark for weeks on end during the winter? You know it would be really fucking cool. What if one of those places was attacked by vampires? That would be really fucking cool. On the face of it, it seems firstly so obvious it's hard to believe no one's done it before, and secondly, it seems like it would be pretty unlikely to make for a good film. Or if it was good, you'd think it would be good in that kind of ridiculous dead snow kind of way, sort of a B movie, low budget, low effort, low yield type of thing. But you'd be wrong. I mean, sure, 30 Days of Night sounds like a low budget, low effort, low quality, schlocky, exploitation-y film, but it's a long way from that. This is, without a doubt, one of the great vampire films of all time. Now, the plot is pretty simple. A remote Alaskan town comes under attack from vampires during the winter when they have 30 days of night, hence the title, and everything pretty much goes from there. The situation is the plot, in a sense. The characters are drawn in pretty broad strokes. They don't really change all that much between the first 20 minutes and the last, but the script is well written enough that it doesn't matter. It's not really about the development of the characters, it's more about what those characters do once they've been developed in the given situation. And in fact, going off on a bit of a tangent here, you might say that there are two different kinds of film. On the one hand, you've got films that are about characters going on a personal journey and changing over time, and on the other, you have films like this, which are about characters that are established early on, and we then get to see how those characters act under certain pressures. The pressure, in this instance, being vampires. And what really elevates 30 Days of Night is the quality of the vampires. In cinema, as in literature, there's always been this sort of adolescent obsession with the sexual aspect of vampires. There's this idea that they have to be a metaphor for our darkest desires or whatever. Now, that may have made sense in the 1890s when Bram Stoker was writing Dracula, because back then human sexuality was very heavily regulated. People were more repressed, society was more repressive, so it worked when you created a monster that was all about giving vent to those urges that society deemed unacceptable. And also about how foreigners were giving everybody syphilis. I don't know, it's not a good book. It's really not a good book. Now, at least if you're straight, and especially if you're a straight man, you don't have to deal with that level of social policing, or at least not unless you're into the more niche areas of sexuality. And that's fair enough, nothing wrong with that. But our lives, and especially our sexual lives, are much less regulated both by social stigma and the judgment of society as an abstract thing, and also by the law. So it's no longer relevant to have vampires that are all smooth and charming all without the sex, because when you try and do that in the modern age, you get Twilight. And yes, I really do think that Twilight was a natural progression from the way vampires have been used by writers for over a century now. 30 Days of Night is nothing like Twilight. This film strips away all the sexuality from its vampires and reimagines them as these sort of apex predators, these inhuman things that tap into that most primal fear, the fear that there is an animal somewhere out there in the darkness beyond the circle of light cast by your campfire that is coming after you, that is hungry, that you cannot get away from. And they are frightening, these vampires. First of all, they just look scary. You've really got to see them to get it, but the prosthetics team did a fantastic job. They've got these big, nasty, animalistic-looking teeth. They're covered in dried, congealed blood. They really look like not only wild animals, but fucking scary wild animals. You could not mistake these vampires for humans. They are certainly not animalistic in the sense of Springwatch. They're as far from Dracula as Dracula is from Edward Cullen. The second thing that makes 30 Days of Night so special is the pacing. It's not one of these big, cumbersome, baroque films like Coppola's Dracula. It's paced a lot more like Blade. This is an action film as much as it is a horror film, and the action is really well done. David Slade, the director, has done a hell of a job with making you feel like you're in the middle of a frantic struggle for survival. It's not quite as fast-paced and sort of bare-bones action as a film like Mad Max, The Raid, or Taken, but it's certainly more frenetic than you would expect from this particular kind of film. It's not got that gothic tint to it that vampire films usually do. 30 Days of Night has taken vampires, probably the most tired and least interesting of all the classic horror monsters, and it's made them feel fresh again. That is a considerable achievement, even if the rest of the film weren't good, and the rest of the film is good. The performances are solid, camera work is good, everything about it is really professional and really effective. It's a damn good film, and you are missing out if you refuse to watch it just because you don't like vampires. Anyway, that's all for today. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe, and as always, have a good day.